Hello and welcome back to another episode of Pass the Syrup, the estate agency podcast run by agents, for agents, occasionally drunk agents, occasionally hungover agents. Today we are filming the day after EA Masters. You can hear it in the throat, can't you, in the voice? You can see it in Kristjan's eyes. And Spencer's sparkle. So it's going to be an interesting 45 minutes. I'm sure we're going to have some fun. We're going to do the usual bits and pieces. First, let me introduce you to three great guests. So, making second appearance, Kristjan, the Viking Byfield of Base Property Services. How are you, sir?
Good, mate. Good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Next up, Kesha, Foss-Smith of John D. Wood.
Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Very good. I can hear a knocking now in the background or something. Is that yours? I can hear it. So we're going to work around it. And making his debut, hard to believe how the man, the myth, the legend, Spencer Lawrence of Paramount Properties, first time on the show. Spencer, welcome.
Thank you so much. I was like waiting for this invite when Kristjan got in number 2. I mean, he's on WhatsApp. It's just not, he's a good pal of mine, but it's just not nice. It's just not nice.
Yeah, I mean, I've got no excuses. I've got nothing for you.
All good. It's all good. I'm very grateful. We're very lucky to be here.
But you know what, guys? I've got a feeling. I think this is the 26th. So we're 6 months in. So we've got
awesome.
The big one, Spencer. We've called in the big guns. This is the A-star quality team right here. Going to get me through it, which is what I need. So let's get straight into the big question. This week's big question. Can someone who hasn't bought or rented before really be a credible agent? Spiky, controversial, maybe not so much. What do you guys think? Can people who don't have the relevant experience in their own personal lives actually be really great at the job?
I'm going to jump straight in and go, yeah. I think primarily, right, it's about empathy. Doing a good job, sales and lettings is about empathy and just looking after people, and I think if that aligns with your core values, yeah, I mean, look, let's tell it how it is, right? Nothing we do is ultimately rocket science. We haven't gone off and had to do like a 10-year medical degree to do what we do or anything like that. It's the technical elements of our job can be taught, and there's a lot of products and outsourcing that can also support that side of things. So yeah, I think the right person can, just like the right person can be tainted by going and working in the wrong agency. Someone who might have delivered a good job can just be taught the wrong ways by the wrong people. So yeah, I don't think you need hands-on experience to be good. I think you've got to have a keen willingness to learn, right? You've got to be willing to quickly educate yourself on the facts and the legislation and the processes and everything else. But again, there's so much content nowadays out there. If that's the avenue you want to pursue, I don't see why a motivated person can't go out and educate themselves on the basics and hit the ground running and figure it out from there, really.
I also think from like a sales perspective, if you've bought a property, you've only experienced one sale, and it could have been a really easy sale. It could have been a clean transfer, a clean title, no issues. But the problem comes in is, then you think you're a know-it-all because you've bought one property. The reality is that when you're a salesperson, the more deals you work on, the more you learn, and even solicitors learn every day because new things pop up every day. So I'd be more inclined to say, yeah, it gives you perspective. Like Kristjan said, it gives you perspective. It gives you empathy because you've been through it yourself. You understand the paperwork that you have to go through or that your buyers have to go through. But you certainly aren't a better agent for it. You've got more empathy towards people who are going through it themselves, but definitely not.
You're not a better agent for it. So that's quite a strong statement. That's quite.
Spencer's saying surprisingly quiet on this one.
I think for me, I mean, if this was a prerequisite for people needing to do our job, then we've got a big problem. Like everyone's got to start somewhere. It's about the onboarding, the training, the coaching, the mentoring, what is expected from an individual coming into your company for the first 6 months. Are you going to put them in the firing line? Like, you know, that's probably not a good place for them to be. And I think that question, if it was asked sort of 10, 15 years ago, I think the answer is probably going to be a little bit different. But now what we do, thankfully, is so much more multifaceted. So you have presenters doing videography, you have marketeers, you have people dealing with renewals or, you know, the tenancies, the compliance elements. So, you know, I know maybe that's leaning on the letting side, but if you know, if you got the outsourcing route with conveyancing and bits and pieces, like, you don't go to school and, you know, on your first day and do your A-levels. That's just not how it works, is it? Well, it wasn't for me. I mean, you know, it's baby steps, and you need to slowly introduce people. And, you know, it should be challenging. Day one should be challenging, 6 months should be challenging, but they should have a good chance of succeeding. Like, so for me, yes, it's important if you have bought a property before, like that could be super useful, but how is that transferable when you're dealing with lots of different people and lots of different situations? And on rentals, I mean, you know, yeah, if you went to uni, you might have rented a property or two, but, you know, those properties, you know, I wouldn't want my worst enemy to live in. You know, and I was in them for quite a long time. I've actually looked at some photos of where I lived. I can't believe my mum and dad did it to me. But anyway, that's another story. That's another story. So, yeah, for me, it's not that important if the onboarding, the coaching, and the structure of what the next year looks like. You know, are you going to get a newbie, so to speak, selling £1 million home in their first couple of weeks? Well, it depends. Are they opening the door, or are they facilitating the entire sale? Like, you know, it's just common sense prevails, I think. You know,
If only, Spencer. If only.
well, simplify things.
I think interestingly, though.
Let me ask you guys this: did you guys, when you got into property, other than Spencer's horrific experience as a student, had you guys done much in the way of property before you got into working in property? Because I certainly hadn't. I lived at home when I started in property.
I mean, we moved home a lot growing up. My parents would quite often buy properties and kind of refurbish them, like project houses. We would move probably every 2 or 3 years. So they would quite often buy a place and we'd do it up, and then after 3 or 4 years we'd move on. So probably moved quite a lot early.
Do you think that, Kristjan, do you think that experience gave you an interest in property later life?
Yeah, I think that, and my dad always had a passion about architecture. My father's a watercolor artist, but he wishes he could have been an architect if he'd had the math skills, quite frankly. But he's always had a passion for architecture. So yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of people who come into our industry, I didn't grow up planning to be an estate and letting agent. It was very much something that I found, you know, was at a crossroads in my career, and you know, wanted to find something that was interesting and had a good earning potential without needing to go back to uni, as we were talking about. And that's what kind of sparked my interest in joining agency back in kind of, when was that, 2001, somewhere around there. So yeah, I think that underpinned just a general interest in property, although I had very little idea about what a state agency was at that time. It just seemed like an interesting, you know, job that was nice and sociable. You got to meet people and go out and see properties, and yeah, it just kind of appealed in that respect. But I don't think there was any big master plan behind it. I don't know about you lot.
Well, I was a singer and a radio presenter in my previous life in South Africa before I moved here. So I had absolutely no idea about property at all. And I think the only reason why back in the day Foxtons hired me is because they knew I was from South Africa, being like the South African recruitment department. But I have an interest in people. I love people. I love like seeing people, speaking to people. And, you know, I was like, what job can I do where I can just meet new people every single day? That's why I got into property. I mean, I love going into people's property. I'm really nosy, but I think more from the people's perspective, I just could never catch myself sitting behind a desk when I was like, okay, I need a grown-up job now. If I imagine being an accountant or a lawyer, people did tell me growing up I should be a lawyer because I'm apparently really good at arguing. That's just because I got 3 siblings. Yeah, that's why I got into it.
What about you, Spencer? What's your origin story?
So my shoe-in, my dad he's retired now, a builder, brought up by a sort of quite hard Victorian man. And my dad sort of imposed that upbringing on me. So when I was 11, every school holiday, half term, I was in the van with him at 6:30. And it was, I wouldn't say child labour, but I was certainly on the tools at a very young age. And over time, I fell in love with creating new spaces or better spaces for people to be in. And then I was happily, went through school, went to uni, got a degree, went back working for my dad as a labourer and having the time of my life. And my mum was furious about this. And there's absolutely no way you're going to go and work with your dad. You've been through university, we've worked so hard. And to cut a long story short, she produced a CV. I don't know how the hell she did it because I only worked for my dad. He's really good at making tea and carrying rubbish up and down the stairs and dropping it in a skip. That was basically what I was doing. And anyway, the long story short, I was seconded to go and empty a heavy goods vehicle for M&S at Brent Cross back in the day. And and I was so happy with it because I wasn't working with my dad. And at the last minute, they said, hey, do you want to go and work at Anscombe and Ringland doing some filing? Like they were moving from an office to a head office. And I was like, sure. And I walked through the sort of main drag and I was just straight away hooked. And that was like, I just want to be like the buzz, the energy was just amazing. And I was there for 3 months filing and learning and watching and all the rest of it. And then I forged my career from there. So I actually started with loving property first, and I've had to try and get much better with people. And that's been really hard because property is really good. You leave a property, you come back to it a week later, it's about the same. A person you leave them 20 minutes later, they seem like they're completely different. I'm struggling with that. I'm working on it.
Well, Kristjan, Spencer pretty well. I would say if he's had to work on that, he's worked exceptionally well on that because he is exceptional with people, absolutely brilliant with people in terms of communication and empathy. So yesterday we were at the EA Masters and we got some award winners on the show. Well done, guys. Really, really, really great. Do you know what my favourite moment was? This sounds really cheesy and really naff, and you know what? I don't care. If I wasn't hungover, I might not even say it. But Spencer's table was right next to ours, and Spencer, was it your lettings manager?
Yeah,
Ollie, yeah.
Spencer's letting manager won the lettings manager of the year, which was lovely. But as I looked at Ollie, who was standing up and everyone was going wild, in direct eye line between me and Ollie is Spencer, and the look of pure joy on your face was the nicest 10 seconds of the whole event. The event was nice, it was okay, it was boozy, it was fun, there was some learning, but it's rare that you capture that exact, I just happened to be in the right seat at the right time, just as you found out someone you're super proud of has just done an amazing thing. And that was a beautiful 10 sequends.
And just after that, I got my handkerchief out. I have to say, thank God I had my handkerchief there. I was blubbing, I was.
Well, yeah, you welled up, yeah. But that's what it's about. So if you have trouble with people, then God knows what people must think about how I communicate with them. So to pull this back, long story short, doesn't matter if you've been involved in property before. What's much more important is the environment you find yourself in to learn the trade.
However, I would say if you want to supply into agency or if you're trying to disrupt agency, I'd say that often is triggered from a bad experience within our profession. But what it
Give us
leads
an example,
to...
Kristjan. Give us an example.
No. Well, I mean, look, let's look at how many online agents have tried and struggled. I mean, we don't even need to name names, right? How many online agents have tried to disrupt the agency model in the UK, and it has proven to be very, 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 very difficult to disrupt and actually have a positive bank balance. But I think there's been a lot of products, and I'm sure you guys have seen them as well over the last 20 years, that have come from the right motivation. Someone's had a horrible experience renting or buying or selling or, you know, whatever it is, and they're like, right, I'm gonna create a solution for this problem. But the problem is they rush straight out with that without first taking the time to go and sit down and understand what is the process of selling a property. You know, why did that horrible process happen in lettings? Why couldn't that be done sooner? Whatever it is. And so you quite often see these very well-intentioned offerings, but they don't understand the framework that we all have to work to. You know, I'm sure every sales agent in the country would absolutely love to be able to offer like 14-day exchanges and 28-day completions, you know, and have a 98% success rate on sales. But that's just not the fact of the matter. You know, you're looking at fall through rates of what I think at the conference they were saying yesterday, anywhere between 20 to 35% in most parts of the country. You know, so yeah, sometimes I think our profession is often perceived very simplistically.
Absolutely.
From those who don't necessarily feel as an industry we deliver. But they have a somewhat simplistic view sometimes of, oh, we'll just do this. And it's like, yeah, dude, if it was that easy,
we'd all be doing it.
All of us would have done it for ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think in that instance, people need to definitely jump boots in to go and work in an agency or, you know, collaborate with an agency just to understand how an industry works. What are the operational realities of running an agency and delivering whatever that service is? I think in that instance, you do need to understand the landscape and the framework, but to work on our industry, absolutely not.
All in agreement?
Yeah, absolutely. I think emotional intelligence is something that's completely underrated in what we do. And for me, the people I admire the most in agency, and there are many, they have a very high level of emotional intelligence. And if that is something you have in abundance, I think that gives you like a 60-meter dash down the sort of 100-meter track if it was an industry that you fancy coming into, because you're dealing with people at the sharp end of their emotional crisis. Like, is it going to happen? There's a lot of factors going on. So you have to understand, and the empathy bit that Kristjan said at the start, but high levels of emotional intelligence, like that's a work on for the industry. For me, is super important.
Yeah, it falls over. There's a common theme yesterday about communication, and lots about AI, and lots about the future and the direction of travel. And actually, Spencer, your comments you made whilst on stage about AI should create opportunities for us to become more face-to-face, more interactive, better communicators. I think there's this really, really current common misconception that AI is going to mean I just put my feet up on the desk and I just relax and life's going to get really, really easy. Someone said on a podcast a few weeks ago, as business gets better, I find myself working harder. There's more to do. The business improves, and that challenges me more or pushes me more. I don't think AI is going to make... In fact, it's already not making my life easier. AI has somehow created 3 extra jobs for me in the last 7 days. Because, wow, that's pretty cool. I can do that now. Let's go try it. But from a communication perspective and emotional intelligence and empathy, applying those, I don't think there'll ever be a piece of tech that can take that away from great agents. And I hope that's why agency won't go down the same road as the travel industry, where, you know, I remember being a kid and walking into a travel agent's and they bring out the brochures and you're looking at where are we going to go on holiday, and I actually couldn't tell you where our nearest travel agent is right now. They're so few and far between. So I think we add more value than that, and the human interaction piece and the communication piece is much more important. I'm waffling. It's time to move on.
Pass the syrup, Ben. Pass the syrup.
If only I had some right now. Okay, social hand grenade. I saw this and it really resonated with me. I'm just going to show you guys. People sort of bragging about, you know, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're achieving this. And it's pretty crap content, I think, personally. Or am I too harsh?
It's not for me. It's not for me at all. that sort of swagger and arrogance. You know, if I'm earning £20,000 and my costs are 5, I'm happier than if I'm earning 100 and my costs are 110. So there's a seesaw in all this stuff, and I just do not get it at all. Like, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to generate? Like, you know, there's no positivity there. There's no improvement. It's, you know, I'm better than someone else. It's hierarchical potentially, and I literally can't stand any of that. It's like, and I just don't go there. If I think I know what you're talking about, the type of stuff that's certainly on LinkedIn a lot now, and I swipe delete because it's just, I've never had a conversation with anything like that with anyone I admire ever in my life, because it's just not relevant to me. What someone earns is completely irrelevant to me.
I've actually unfollowed some people on LinkedIn who I used to be quite close to, actually, in agency. And the reason being is because, especially those who've gone into like a self-employed broker model type thing, where they're like carrying on about how much money they're making and how much time they get to spend with their family, and this is the only way to do it, and you should never be in the corporate environment. And I just look at it and I go, it's amazing that you're doing really well. I'm really happy for you, but I choose to be in a corporate. I love being here. I could do my own thing. I don't want to. I want to be where I am. So just because you're doing amazingly doesn't mean that the rest of us are doing really badly just because we choose not to go it down your way and bragging about the Teslas and the this and that. I'm just like, seriously, nobody cares. Like, it's so, and it's funny because, you know, I've been thinking about it for a while, and it was actually one of my other directors who's we're obviously really good friends, and he called me, and he obviously knows some people from the past, and he was also like, what do you think of their posts? And I'm like, I've unfollowed them because it's just like, I don't want to know. I want to know about the good news. I want to know about, you know, what's going on. Like, you know, like you said, pass the syrup. Let's, you know, exchange what we've done really well and what's really worked for us, and let's all do well and let's all uplift each other. Not, hey, I'm doing really well and you can only do really well going down this route, and if you're not, then you're doing really badly. It's just so rubbish.
I think it also fails to pay homage to what got them to where they are, right? I think it's very interesting to see people who've come up, whether it's through independence, through corporates, through a blend of the two, and then kind of think it's okay to kind of spit on those business models having now migrated. Like, you wouldn't be sat in that seat earning the figures you claim to be earning if people hadn't invested the last 10 years in turning you into the same person you are. I think it's very disrespectful, like you said, to your ex-colleagues and friends, to your former employers. It's incredibly arrogant. And yeah, I think we're all on the same page here, right? Like Spencer, I can't remember ever having a conversation with anyone ever where I either talked about my earnings or they talked about theirs. Just
bizarre.
I mean, sometimes we'll have business conversations about how the business is doing and like what kind of growth you're achieving and, you know, what kind of profit margins you're hoping to look at. But really, that's a side conversation. That definitely isn't something that happens in a public environment. And it's you kind of berate other people saying like, well, if you're not doing this, quite frankly, you suck. And it's
my experience of this is the ones who are quiet are the ones that are usually doing fairly well.
Yeah.
That's my experience.
Yeah. See, my view is a little bit. It's a very specific type of character that's posting that stuff, and they, I think, are and this is maybe a little bit unfair, but they're not actually good for business for a lot of us. They actually are. Their comments and their communication technique and the things they say and the way they behave quite often is why the consumer doesn't trust us, because of some of the stuff they're putting out there.
I think it's undoing a lot of what we're all trying to do at the moment, right? Our industry.
But they're doing that to try and attract more people like them, and we're trying to attract less people like them. And it's like, you know, it's like one step forward, 2 steps back. Sometimes it feels a little bit. And it's a sort of audio. But I had a conversation with someone. You know, you said you've never spoken to someone about money. this person's spoken to me 3 times about how much money they earn. Like, as in sitting next to each other, and he's telling me how much money he made last year. And I'm thinking, this is really weird. I don't even really know you that well. And I'm like, you can't be recruiting me. You know, I've already got a business. This is so strange. So 3 times, he's like, on 3 separate occasions. I mean, he must tell everyone, he just forgets who he told. And this is 3 different months. And at the end of each conversation, he says, I've sort of maxed out all my referral opportunities. So I've, for the last year, I've worked friends and family, and it's been great, and I've made so much money. I don't have any pipeline. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do this year. 3 months later, he's saying the same thing. He's got no plan for the future. And I'm saying, well, like, we're stuck having a conversation. So what is your lead generation sort of strategy? What are you going to do? And he honestly, and this is I'm not being unpleasant, he doesn't know what to do. So it's all well and good screaming and shouting about, I've had this amazing year, I've done this and that, and a huge number. But actually, over the period of the next 2 years, you sound like you're going to earn less on a pro rata basis on that 3-year period, because you haven't got the relevant experience to go out and build a business yourself. When I said let's talk about this as social hand grenade, it wasn't necessarily, and I'm still not targeting sort of self-employed agents with the comments I'm making. There's business owners that make some really brash comments to try and attract characters into their business. And there are some really great self-employed agents, actually, I think, out there doing really good things.
And there's people in other businesses who just like to talk about what they're in. I've got a really good friend, funny enough, who always talks about what he earns just to try and find out what I earn. I'm like, what does it matter? Like, he's just like, but do you earn more than me? And it's like, what does it matter? Like, honestly, like, what is it? I don't know why people get so obsessed about it. Like you said, I grew up in a family where talking about money was just something we never ever did. I never ever knew what was going on financially in my family. Like, nobody knows what goes on financially with mine. It's just strange.
I think next time he asks, you just look at him very sympathetically and just do, yeah. And leave it at that. Don't answer the amount. Just be like, yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
£1 million.
In our family, you do a good job, and the money that comes with it comes with it, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you find someone having a conversation about finances. Don't get me wrong, when you're starting a new job, we're thinking about career path, I understand that you've got to consider finances, and nobody works for free. But yeah, I find it very strange that it's become much more common to just be very out there with this strange line of chat. I think
also, like, I've seen quite a few people particularly come out of larger agency corporate side of things, and I'm not necessarily talking about the individual agent model here, but quite a lot of people who come through working within big agency where there is this huge machine that they largely don't see generating leads, both inquiries but valuations on their desk, and they're like, this is easy. The lead comes in, I go and talk to them, we land it because we're a good brand, and we sell it, and boom, and I make money. And I've seen over the last 20 years quite a lot of people leave that sector, launch their own agency, and within a year they're like, yeah, I'm going back to work for someone else, because the reality of, as we all know, juggling multiple plates that comes with, you no longer get to just be an egg or just be anything. You're everything from the cleaner and the tea lady to the CEO and everything else. So yeah, I think the reality sometimes when that curtain is pulled back, and like you said, Ben, people come out, great that they're getting that initial support from friends and family, because that doesn't always happen in any form of business. But like you said, that potentially is the easy pickings. And then if you don't understand, what your curation journey is, that and the investment of time and money, absolutely, to start getting those leads in your inbox. I think a lot of people are going to have quite a big wake-up call. Like you said, you have that honeymoon 6-12 month period, but after that, I think the realities of running a business are going to start to bite. And for some people, I think they're going to realize that the self-employed model is a bit too broad. It's a bit too much.
Business ownership is tough, right? I mean, it is tough. You've got to have the self-discipline, extraordinary resilience, a little bit of luck We've all had, at different times, probably a little bit of luck that's helped us on. But it's absolutely not for everyone. And a few weeks ago, we had a conversation about the recruitment process, actually. So many people are being pulled into this nirvana of self-employed or business ownership. And I just think it's completely irresponsible, actually. And we need to be much more transparent about the first year. What you're experiencing for the first year is hell. It is extraordinarily tough. And there's not a lot of income, unless you have got, friends and family wanting to do business with you. Actually, in 20 years, I can count the number of people in my friends and families that I've helped sell on one hand.
Yeah, I don't think I can even get to one hand.
Yes. But okay, good, wonderful. Conscious that we've got about 15 minutes until you're being kicked out, Kristjan.
15 minutes, the clock is ticking before Carla kicks down that door and literally throws me out.
I almost want to go for 20 minutes just so we can.
I was going to say, now I've said that, you're just going to keep us on air. Just lynched out by Carla.
Keep talking.
It's so good to be surrounded by people who love and respect me so much. I love you guys.
Okay, this week's Agents Together advice piece. Sam hasn't done a video for us, but I'm just going to read the question out. So for anyone who's not familiar with Agents Together, it's a mentor-mentee charity set up designed to help people within the property industry. It's an excellent initiative. I think everyone here has been a part of it in some form over the years.
Before you do the question, can we just give a shout out to Sarah Ed?
Yes.
Sarah, who got her contribution to the industry award yesterday at the EA Masters.
Very amazing. Very amazing.
Woman,
yeah.
And hugely responsible for what we're talking about now actually happening. So yeah, just wanted to interrupt you there just to give Sarah a shout out for I think what was the most deserved award of the night.
Kristjan,
day yesterday.
Wow.
But yeah, it was awesome, something like that. But yeah, no, it was awesome to see Sarah get up and get that worthy accolade. So yeah,
and hundreds of agents have been helped by this initiative. Hundreds. So you really can't underestimate the impact this has had on our industry, and specifically the people that need the help and are willing to ask for the help, which is not. We're not historically we're not an industry that's known for helping people when they need the help. Actually, so it's a brilliant initiative. And if you're interested, best person to reach out to is Sam Offley. We'll always put his details underneath the video, so you can contact him. And I'm really pleased to say that Sam, every few weeks, Sam says that people have reached out because they've heard about it on the podcast. So this 5-minute segment works, which I'm really, really pleased with. This week's question from mentees. So it's around actually recruitment. And if you find yourself in a role or in a business that doesn't feel right anymore, and you think it's time to move on, just some advice on the. Oh, there I go. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, but you've turned into a ginger cat, which is actually better.
It's such a douche. I knew you were going to say. I mean, honestly, I thought you were going to go a lot worse than that. Actually, I thought it was going to be a lot worse. So I'll take that.
I've heard people call you a pussy before, but I didn't realise what that meant.
Big ginger pussy. Yes, thank you. Lovely. Okay, if someone believes it's the right time to move on, they're at that stage that it's time for the next step, and the next step is another business. Just some general advice from you guys on how to handle that. Be that the exit process with their current business, or looking for a new role. I think sort of the idea is not necessarily to be pulled into using recruitment consultants. So, any advice you would give on people for a smooth transition, maybe from a current role into a new one?
One thing I can say is this industry is really small, so never burn your bridges. That is so key for me. And it's the reason why I never get put on gardening leave, and I don't know what that feels like. Even if I'm going to a competitor, my bosses have always trusted that I'll always give everything I possibly can until the last day I walk out of their company. And I'll be honest about the reasons why I'm leaving. The reasons why I'm leaving are because I don't feel like my future and your future are the same. And that's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with that. We can't force people to stay somewhere that they don't want to be. Or if the direction of the company is not somewhere where you want to go, that's okay. But never burn your bridges. Do not try and steal information. Do not try and, screw the company over, because that's where it'll come back to you. Someday it will come back to you. So that's my advice.
Very nice. Completely agree. It is a tiny industry, actually. The amount of people that decide burning bridges is the way to go is astonishing, really, isn't it? We've all got stories about people that have done something they shouldn't. Kristjan, advice?
Yeah, I think look, I think over the years we've had chats with team members where we just feel like fit hasn't worked one way or the other, or a mutual agreement. And I think we've always taken the viewpoint of we spend way too much time working to turn up and do a job that you don't enjoy doing. And that you can't expect every single member of staff to have the same passion and buy-in that you do as an MD or an owner or a partner or whatever. You know, you have to have realistic expectations. But I mean, for me, you know, most days of the month, it's about seeing that person walk through the door and seeing them happy to be in the room with the team that they work with and working together to deliver, you know, what we try to achieve as an agency. And I think whenever we notice that not quite fitting, you know, we've always had over the years some quite frank conversations with people going, look, this is not about your performance. This is not about you as an individual, whether we like each other or not. This is just about the fact that we spend more time with the people we work with doing our jobs than we spend with our family, our friends, etc., etc. And I don't want someone working for me who wakes up in the morning and dreads walking through the door, who doesn't want to get on the tube or jump in their car to come to work. And obviously you're allowed off days. I want someone who turns up and 9 times out of 10 is happy and excited to be here. And if that's not the case, then I want to help that person try and figure out what is going to make them happy. What is it they want? Because if they're not getting it here, you know, we've had people in the past week. I remember early doors, we had a guy who dismally failed his degree, his final exams, fell into working with us, loved it, smashed it, basically told his parents, I'm not going to resit my exams, I'm going to be an estate agent for the rest of my life. And we turned around and went, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And we scheduled studying time within his working schedule. We made him resit his exams. He got a first. He's now an investment banker who earns more money than me and Anne combined. But the great thing is, this is a guy like 15, 18 years ago. We still get a message from him a couple of times a year. When he has something big happen in his life from work, we'll still get a message and he'll be like, this amazing thing just happened. This wouldn't have happened if you guys hadn't pushed me before. You know, when the pandemic hit, we furloughed some of our staff. We mandated that everyone had to do a course, but it wasn't allowed to be anything to do with property. It had to be something they were passionate about. And a lady called Hannah, who worked for us at the time, she went off and did this thing about pressed flowers and creating kind of jewelry out of pressed flowers, and then ended up launching a dog like collar and accessory business off the back of it, and ended up serving notices with us going, this is it, I figured out what my dream is. But it was like, great, if that's the happy place, that is definitely not the same as letting and managing property. So if that's what makes you happy, awesome. So I think that, you know, that's our approach. I want people to be
happy,
like being here. I don't want them to be here just for a paycheck.
Yeah.
Spence?
I think for me, is there an alternative role in the existing environment you're in? Because people outgrow their roles, that happens, and you know, you need to be aware of where that person could be positioned, maybe before they think they could be there, and help them get there if they're, you know, because people run out of steam in roles. I think that's something to consider for both business owners and the people, you know, the teams who work for them, with them, I should say. And then if you've made that call, I'm off, then you need to make a list of your non-negotiables. What are your non-negotiables as an individual? What are your values as a person? And then does the brand that you're thinking of, forget about the recruiters just for the time being, does the brand that you think you want to go and work for, do your values line up, or as many as possible? And then, you know, simple trick, I would, you know, always check in as an applicant, you know, be a consumer, be the audience of that company that you're thinking of going to join, to see how actually they go about things. And that might be a perfect match for you, and it might not be. And if it's not be, then you need to go and look for alternatives. You know, non-negotiables could be geographically, the type of property, what type of stock is there, you know, what type of people do you want to be interacting with, what size team have they currently got, you know. But you know, if we go back to yesterday, that, you know, point 15 about having fun, ultimately coming to work should just be, it should be fun. Our roles are to find the magic within and to make those roles better with the outsourcing and all the rest of it. So if you're thinking of moving, non-negotiables, values align, and then be a customer, see what happens.
I think that's brilliant advice. Being a customer gives you a real insight into how they deal with their people. But if we want to look under the hood, so what advice, open to anyone, I'm thinking these are my non-negotiables so in terms of property, location, that sort of stuff, yes, but actually also from a business culture perspective, I'm looking for, let's say, I want a fun working environment. I want a business that cares about personal development. I want a social element to what I do. How do I get under the hood when I meet with this potential employer to find out? Because you're in an interview, a little bit of selling both ways. How do I find out culturally whether this business is a good fit? What do you think?
Well, you've got meet the team pages, which I think are fantastic. So you can see what the diversity is like within that team, the age demographic, and if they have updated the photos in the last decade. You know, Simon Whale, there's one or two that are definitely from 15 years ago, because he's looking very handsome and boyish, I might add.
Yeah, I think
But and then what you can then do, you know, you can look at LinkedIn profiles of the meet the team. You know, what type of stuff are they engaging with? What are they writing about? What are their passions? You know, do you align with the team? And largely one of the things we do here is the team have the final say on the team member who comes to work here, because they then get the total buy-in. There's no anxiety, oh, what's this person? Kristjan's going to come in and rock the boat. You know, no, because Kristjan's already had the conversation. Kristjan likes X and X likes Kristjan, and they make the judgment call. So actually, Kristjan walks through the door, and I'm like, hey, Kristjan, welcome. Like, this is fantastic. And I think that's something that, you know, businesses could consider, is if you want better success with your onboarding, is actually let the team be part of that process. And I think lots of people, you know, they don't, oh, this is the right fit, you're going to go and fit into that team. I'm not convinced that's the way to go.
Kesha, Kristjan, anything else on best way to assess sort of culture in the business? Make sure I mean, I love the idea that when you approach an employer and you like them and you see it, you make the suggestion that maybe I could come and do a day or two before we make a decision. If you're the proactively bringing that to the employer, that is just like ding, 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 ding. These are sort of
exactly. I think as an employer, someone saying, oh, look, can I come and spend a half day, or, you know, whatever. I mean, we had a lady start with us about 6 months ago who was taking on quite a big commute to come and join us. And it was a slightly different role than what she'd done before. And she was like, look, would it be okay if, because she had to give a month's notice with her former employer, and she was like, oh, do you think it'd be all right if I popped in like 2 or 3 times over that month just to get used to the drive, and I'd like to come in and read your tenancy documents and your terms of business and come and start like learning a little about the system and chatting to the team. And I was like, absolutely, yeah. Yes. But it was great. It was great what Spencer was saying, because we do, you know, we in the last few hires, we've actually encouraged people to come in and spend a bit of time with the team, part of the interview process, and just, we don't go as far, though we've been thinking about it, and it's really cool to hear that Spencer does that. So it's kind of nudged me on the needle to, I think next hire we will actually bring the team in on the decision process. But we've definitely tried to encourage people to spend 5-10 minutes, just sit with each person in the office and just have a quick chat about who they are, what do they do, how long have they been here, and we encourage them to be like, look, ask them what it's like to work here, ask them what we're like as bosses, you know, because it's a bit like when you go on a viewing, particularly in lettings, and you've got a tenant there, and you know, a viewer wants to ask you questions. It's like, don't ask me, ask the tenant, because I've got a motivation to tell you what you want to hear. ask them. You know, it's kind of boots on the ground stuff, right? I think, and if you have that healthy culture, you should be very comfortable and confident putting that in the hands of your team, because hopefully they do enjoy working with you or under you or for you, you know, whatever. they do, you know, they are gonna, yeah.
I also think it's, you know, talking about the team meeting, the way we work actually is my managers in the office always meet any, you know, potential employee for their office first. And if they like them, they'll then send them to me to interview. And sometimes I'll have a manager who will interview someone and then they'll say, look, they're really good. I don't think they're going to fit in the dynamics in this office, but you should interview them because they could fit somewhere else. And we often have CVs that come back up to us and then we interview them. We're like, actually, you know what? You feel like you could fit really well in that team or in that team. And that's really nice, because it just goes to show that managers also are taking a more of an interest, not just in their own personal, for them to win. They're actually going, well, you actually do look like you could be really capable and fit really well in our company, just not in the team dynamics within this office. So that's also really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's an indicator of how strong a business culture you guys have got, or your managers are super competitive, and when they interview are done, they send it to you and say, "Well, this could be really good for the office down the road."
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely unreal.
Definitely hire them tomorrow.
Yeah, just think about that.
I mean, just a suggestion. Not that I've ever been a part of a business that would behave like that. Well, we've got like a minute left.
Yeah, I'm about to get lynched.
So, waffle of the week. This tiny quick. Well, it's not normally a tiny segment, but it's going to be a tiny segment. Say, waffle of the week is, you know, the idea is remind people that there's just a lot of waffle out there, and sometimes just switch off, ignore it, forget it, don't be scared by it. This is someone actually said it yesterday, which I thought was powerful, because I say it most weeks. This can be a very lonely business. Not, you know, sometimes you find yourself in a position where you don't know who to talk to about certain things, and you're reading these headlines and it's the end of the world. You guys, I'm sure, have seen this. The property price predictions over the last few weeks have just been ramped up. You know, the price is going to do this, they're going to do that, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. I think today, one of the large premium corporates has made another prediction. The about turns on what people think property prices are going to do, I think, is concerning agents, and I just don't think it should. I think property prices will do what they do. Focus on your business, don't worry about it. Doesn't matter what property prices to an extent are doing, as long as you're doing the right work. My point is really, to anyone watching this, if you see a headline that talks about property prices, just don't bother reading the article, because it can change in 6 weeks. You know, it's so extreme right now.
But also, I think we all know, right, a viewpoint of anything as a national market, sales or lettings, is meaningless. It means absolutely nothing at all.
It's all about your audience. That's the bottom line, you know. And you know, simple question: if people, you know, on the purchasing side of the fence, if they're concerned about value, the question is, how long do you think you're going to be staying in this one? And most people say many years. Well, let's not worry about this short-term whatever's going on, because look over your shoulder for the last 400 years, and you're going to be pretty satisfied with what's happened with property prices.
Yeah, and we all know it's cyclical, right? We all know there are the good times and bad times. You're in it long enough, you go through enough of them. That's where it is. The last thing I just wanted to add. I mean, I remember cornering a journalist around the time in the lead up to the global financial crisis. Actually, it was like, I think it was a Times journalist at like a networking event I went to, and I kind of cornered him, and I was like, "What is all this like? It's either boom or bust. Like, why is there never any kind of moderate conversation about the market?" And he said, very simply, we compete with features in the newspaper. We go to our editor, and they were like, "Guess what? The editor's not very interested in. Yeah, the market's fine. It might go up like 2% this year." So it's like, the only way I get published is if I tell them it's going to boom, or if I tell them it's going to bust. Just bear that in mind when you're reading it. It's people just wanting column inches. It's property clickbait, right? But it doesn't mean it's legitimate.
I had an interview with a journalist last week. She just wanted some help, some data. She wasn't even for any specific piece. So starting to put some stuff together. And the amount of times she tried to coax me into an extreme statement. You know, well, do you think this is going to happen? No, I don't. Are you sure? Yes, I'm absolutely 100% categorically sure that the world is not going to fall off a cliff. But it's not. I can empathise. She's in a position. She's got a boss. Her boss is saying, "Get me a headline that's going to make people click on the link and they're going to open it." So I get it. I understand where they're coming from. But this stat, which I think is an amazing stat, in the last 50 years, property prices have only gone backwards 4 years out of the 50. What a stat that is! Property prices have only been negative 4 out of 50 years. If that doesn't give you confidence that the world is going to be okay.
Is that in London or is that in the UK or where?
UK. That's UK wide. Last 50 years of property data, which is, yes, certainly, you look at 2008, property prices went backwards. But 2009, they were basically static, which is amazing. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? When you think about it that way, you get normally but you lose a chunk in that first year, and then things just start to recover. And that's, I think what's going to happen. But Kristjan's going to get told off.
Yeah, I was going to say, guys, I'm going to have to go, but awesome seeing you all. I am.
Thanks, guys. You've all been brilliant.
Carla's hot breath coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
See you
later.
Have a great one. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
So the question is, do you need to win an award to be an awesome estate agent? And I would actually say no, because at the end of the day, why do you need a certificate or a placard to say how awesome you are? The true test of an awesome estate agent is, of course, whether you do a good job for the vendor and whether you change people's lives. And at the same time, you're not a charity, so it's important that you do it for a profit. But I think the most important thing is, and you know this in the other aspects of your life, is that it's all about whether you can make another human being's life better by you being there. And the market share and the pound notes will follow if you go with that sort of attitude. I know that because I've got grey hair. How many times do you have to learn the same lesson? If you get that in your 20s and 30s, your life will be much easier. You'll earn more money if you go with the intention of trying to help people and not what you can get from people. Love you all.